from Emmett Fox. I'm reading from September the 28th tomorrow. It's called The Hidden Studio. We are all engaged in building our consciousness during every waking hour. This work is invisible, silent, and consequently overlooked by the bulk of mankind. Nevertheless, it is the most fundamental and the most far-reaching activity in life. Hour by hour and moment by moment, we are building good or evil, failure or success, happiness or suffering into our life by the ideas that we harbor, the beliefs that we accept, the scenes and events that we rehearse in the hidden studio of the mind. This fateful edifice, upon the construction of which we are perpetually engaged, is nothing less than ourself, our personality, our identity on this earth, our very life story as a human being. That wondrous building, the spiritual consciousness, is called in the Bible the Temple of Solomon, and we are told two wonderful things about that building. It was built without any noise, and we know that thought is soundless, and it was built upon a rock. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. And then that was a scripture from the 1 Kings chapter 6. Second scripture referred to here is, "Be thou my strong rock, for a house of defense to save me." And that was from Psalm 31. This was entitled The Hidden Studio.
Thank you. You recall last time I talked, which was 2 weeks ago, I talked about processes to help you achieve an ever closer approximation to the perfect love, perfect spiritual walk of the divine. Today, I want to explore the other part, because if we concentrate just on the spiritual divine, then we are neglecting part of our responsibility as children of God, because we are here on this earth. We have the spark of God within us, but we are walking on this earth, and part of our responsibility is to, if you will, lift up the frequency, lift up the pieces of this earth to a higher level. And what I've done, I found 4 different people who established concepts. Well, one isn't a people, or that to them would help make them better contributors to the earth and able to better respect who they were in the process. So I'm going to start with the longest set. Benjamin Franklin, when he was young, having been something of a wastrel for a while, decided that he needed to codify what a well-ordered and appropriate way of living would be. And he created a list of 12 virtues. He later added another one. And I'm just going to briefly mention them to you to give you a sense of what his vision was. He said, temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. And you take that, to a logical extension. In all things be moderate might be another way of looking at it. There is silence. His words are, speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. Well, I think we can take it a step farther. Avoid conversations which are non-productive. Now, occasionally trifling conversation as a way of developing a relationship with someone, now there's purpose to it. But if all you're doing, and I have witnessed families like this, is you're talking baseball scores, or you're talking what the baby just did. That there's no move forward there. It's just sort of a holding pattern. The next of his 13 virtues is order. Let all your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time. So there's several different kinds of order here. There's the physical order of your environment, but there's also ordering the events, the responsibilities in your world. Now, I have, from time to time in my talks, mentioned the writing of Gordon MacDonald, particularly the book Ordering Your Private World. And he speaks of the same thing, the importance of, if you will, having a time for everything that's important to you. So it's not just physical things putting in place, but also using time as a set of shelves, if you will, and making sure that each block of time has its place in terms of your overall forward movement, in terms of your overall responsibilities, within which I argue is the responsibility to make this world a better place. Then there's resolution. Franklin wrote, resolve to perform what you ought, and perform without fail what you resolve. Let your word hold true in all things. And conversely, don't make promises you don't expect to keep or can't keep. Now, a corollary to that would be, if you find you made a promise and you can't keep it, don't pretend, do acknowledge, because honor involves speaking truth to power, speaking truth to others. Frugality. Franklin says, make no expense but to do good for others or for yourself. In other words, waste nothing. Think of that in terms of your life. Be frugal with time, be frugal with finances, even if you will, be frugal with love. I have encountered enough people who are casting so much love on a celebrity that they don't even know when people around them so badly need someone to show caring. Everything we have reasonably has some limits. Our days are numbered, our time each day is numbered. Make good use of that which God has given us for the betterment of yourself, of those around you, of the world, and thus the betterment in your service to the divine. Then he mentions another virtue, industry, which we might, that's an old word or an old definition. In other words, working hard, working steadily. He says, lose no time, always be employed in something useful, cut off all unnecessary actions. Now, let's differentiate that from a workaholic, for instance. We're talking about maximizing the results in what you do, but that includes when it's time to relax, to retire, to rejuvenate. Make good use of that time too. The author of this particular set that I'm working from writes this in it: don't spend your time idling. Try to spend your time doing something productive, and if you lack the energy or focus to do the task at hand, do something else that fits where you are. If you don't have anything on hand to do, spend that time improving yourself. In other words, make effort, whatever direction. If you're too tired to do anything, sleep, and if that tiredness is consistent, engage in purposeful leisure or see a doctor. So work purposefully in each aspect of your life. And yeah, Phyllis is going to hit me over the head with this one because she thinks I don't take enough time off. Then there's sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly, and if you speak, speak accordingly. The writer who adds this, be honest in your words, but also kind in terms of the impact they can have on others. Don't be hurtful with what you say, but strive to lift up the other person. I don't know how many of you remember, but Ronald Reagan got in trouble, and recently other politicians have, for speaking things they shouldn't have on a hot mic, things they wouldn't want repeated. Ronald Reagan didn't realize the sound was still live after a television appearance, and he was still being broadcast. And he said, "This is your president. I'm now announcing that there are bombers on their way to Russia to blast them into smithereens." Created a bit of a stir. The way I go by it, anything I say, I try to remember, is this something that I would say if I knew I was speaking into a live microphone? Or if I knew that the others involved would be hearing it? So that's how I modulate my speaking. Cal Coolidge once said, "I never got into trouble for something I never said," which is another good way of looking at it. Then the next virtue is justice. Franklin writes, "Wrong none by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty to provide." And the writer says, "Don't bring harm to others for your own benefit. Work to find ways so that everyone involved in your interactions finds some genuine benefit. Seek out solutions so everyone wins." In transactional analysis, they called it, "I'm okay, you're okay," or "I'm okay, you're okay, the world's okay." In Quakers, it is speaking the truth, acting out the truth, lifting up in the light. Moderation. Avoid extremes. Forbear resenting injury so much as you think they deserve. And the writer talks about avoid choosing extreme positions or acting toward others in extreme ways. And often, he notes, if you do so, there will be big negative consequences for you, and you'll get very little benefit. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles or at accidents common or unavoidable. In other words, don't be upset by the unexpected events that you encounter in life. They're going to happen. And being upset about them doesn't help to resolve them. This is where resilience comes in. It's like, oh, darn. Okay, well, I can get through it. And then you do the best you can to get through it, as opposed to being really upset and carrying that upset for a long time. When I'm working in Lyft and working with someone who has a long experience of having been abused, one of the ways I can tell that there's healing happening is when they stop every session regaling me about how horrible everything was done to them. And instead they start talking about the things that are happening now, the forward-looking things. Chastity. And he's talking about not being overswayed by physical passions, physical attractions, whether sexual or otherwise. And then humility. His words are, imitate Jesus and Socrates. And then the writer, undersell and over-deliver on everything you say and do. Don't talk about how great you are. Instead, be great and give abundant credit to others who've been involved. So that's Franklin's 13 virtues. And by the way, I will send this and the other lists out to everyone by email when we're done here. Now, that's 13 virtues. The Quakers have 6 what they call testimonies. These are, if you will, thought pieces based on we'll call them the virtues that they perceive are important in a spiritual walk with God and on behalf of God. I have some comments here that you'll receive that were written by the San Francisco Friends School. But here are the 6 simplicities, the 6 testimonies of Quakers. And this is the model I use for myself because they're simple. They raise questions that I can ask myself frequently to make sure I'm achieving maximum spiritual walk and lifting the world with this. Testimony number 1, simplicity. Simplicity in all things. Are we avoiding burdening ourselves overmuch with material objects, with activities we do for pride's sake? Are we allowing our lives to become cluttered by popular culture or demands from the outside on our time, on our caring, that do not fit within a spiritual walk? It goes, the Friends group says, keep life simple so we are free to live in harmony and alignment with our soul's purpose. I'm going to read that again because to me this is the core of it. Keep our lives simple so we are free to live in harmony and alignment with our soul's purpose. And if you're not sure what your purpose is, live simply to avoid cluttering your input so that when that still small voice speaks, gives us a hunch, gives us a nudge, we can hear it. The second Quaker testimony is peace. We are encouraged to build conflict resolution skills, to see conflict as an opportunity for moral growth. If we encounter conflict, use it sort of as a personal curriculum. And if we're engaged directly in conflict, to take responsibility for what we have done to contribute to it and what we can do to help resolve it. And in the broader world of things, Quakers were among the first, for instance, to oppose the Vietnam War as something that was morally wrong. Within the sense of peace is also seek elegant, simple solutions with others who are involved to problems and disagreements. And this is something that this church follows, this next one. In multi-person settings, make decisions by consensus, what Quakers call the sense of the meeting, where we discuss, we explore, we find options until everyone can come to agree on an appropriate solution, as opposed to some people ramming through, which creates more conflict. The next Quaker testimony is integrity. Let your life speak. Let your outer life reflect your inner and spiritual life. Now, in Quakerism, there's a movement about reviving, going to primitive Quakerism, where Quakers had no hesitance stating forthrightly who we are, what we believe, because it is so different from many religions. Each of us here, by and large, is walking a path that's reasonably outside traditional faiths. Do not hesitate to be open and honorable in that conversation. Do not hesitate to acknowledge that we are interconnected and that we have an essential oneness with all. Do not hesitate to speak truth to power, to interact with people with honor, with integrity. You are representing the divine in every moment of every day. You can represent the divine whether you speak about your beliefs or not. Your actions will often show your beliefs. So often in towns, Quakers became the trusted community center because everyone knew they weren't going to cheat or lie or manipulate. None of us, as children of God, need to cheat or lie or manipulate. We can stand tall and strong on God's love and God's truth. And within that context, we can, with integrity, serve as teachers to others. The next testimony is community. Connect with all members, not only of our small community, but the community as a whole. Phyllis is such a great example of that. When she and I go walking, she is talking to everyone. Hi, how you doing? And if she asks a few questions, gets to know them, remembers them for the next time, she is generating love by connecting to the community that way. She is.
That's enough. Go on.
She's telling me to shut up. Okay. She's modest too. Okay. Within community, it's important to be our authentic selves. And in any group, it's important to balance the needs of the individual with the needs of the group, seeking the greater good, but without causing harm to anybody. Then there's finally, teach respect for everyone, and the idea that everyone has a piece of the truth. No matter, if you will, no matter how far out they might seem to be, everyone has a piece of the truth. It may be well hidden if their heart is really obscured with defensiveness, but that doesn't mean we can't respect the fact that they too are part of the divine. And then the next Quaker testimony is equality. Respect different people and different ideas. And see how all these testimonies sort of interlink. We talk about it a bit in one, and then it comes in another direction in another. Encourage your connections, welcome connections with people of all different backgrounds. Honor all belief patterns, whether you believe them or are comfortable with them or not. Celebrate the richness of the community with everyone. And welcome people with differences into your everyday being and life. And then the last of the Quaker testimonies is stewardship. It is our sacred responsibility and trust as representatives of the divine, as people with the divine in our hearts, as people walking on a planet which is also of God. Remember what the Peace Pilgrim said about her original revelation, walking through a forest, and she realizes this tree is of God, and this rock is of God, and that cloud up there is of God too. It's ours to take care of. It's ours to hold up all to the light toward taking care of it. As what is it? Even as you do the least of these, that is how you treat and are respecting God. And within that context, good stewardship involves promoting environmental, economic, and social sustainability, It involves being aware of and working to help assure social justice and the need for equal access to resources. So those are the 6 testimonies that the Quakers live by. So we've done 13 that Ben Franklin set up for himself. We've done 6 that the Quakers live by even now. Now we're going to go to 2 very simple approaches. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, about a month before she died, did an address to a temple. And she was talking about the choices we need to make and the choices that Jews are faced with making. And she said this: the Jewish religion is an ethical religion. That is, we are taught to do right, to love mercy, do justice, not because there's going to be any reward in heaven or punishment in hell. We live righteously because that's how people should live, without anticipating any reward in the hereafter. If the others are too much for you, just think about that. We live righteously because that's how people should live. And then a colleague of mine was talking about a talk she heard by a priest. She doesn't know, she couldn't give me the name. And I've forgotten where it was some meeting someplace. And he rounded off his talk by talking about the 3 basic principles of a spiritual, God-loving life. 1, be kind. 2, don't be a jerk. 3, don't gossip. Now, how's that for simplicity? So it doesn't matter which of these models you aspire to, or perhaps you'd like to write one, or you'll have already written one of your own. But realize each of us does have that spark of God. We are responsible to fanning that spark of God, to responding to it, to using it to lift our life up and lift up the being, including the earth around us. As you do this, and you are in fact adding to your choice to walk in an ever closer approximation to divine love and divine wisdom. And that's what I talked about 2 weeks ago, and this is a follow-on. Let us all work to accomplish that, so this world becomes a better place, one more easily found to be loving and joyous and honorable and enjoyable for all.